This is a week 6 lecture in the Foundation Degree in Building Services and Renewable Energy in Building Services Design and Retrofit module for domestic applications. So we've already had a look at drainage and sanitary requirements for the house, basically the sanitary requirements, getting wastewater out of the house, and then the drainage external for dealing with rainwater and rainwater runoff and putting it into the drains or the sewerage system. But what we want to have a look at now is an alternative strategy for dealing with rainwater runoff in a domestic setting. And rather than running the water off and down the drains and out to the watercourse, what we want to have a look at is, could we do something alternative with that rainwater? And in fact, could we actually use it or reuse it within the property that we're designing the services for? So what we want to have a look at is the process whereby we catch the rain and make use of it. And that is what's known as rainwater harvesting. So that's what we're going to have a look at in this lesson, is rainwater harvesting and how you do it in a domestic setting. So water supplies in the UK are currently what are classified as under stress. Now, if you ask yourself, is there really a shortage of water within the UK? If you look at the annual rainfall amount for 2010, you can see this graph here gives you sort of the percentage of the average. So when it was at its average rainfall for the time of year, it's coloured white. So you can see there's a few areas in the UK, sort of in the east coast, Northern Ireland, sort of half of Northern Ireland, and then along the east coast of Scotland and England, where it was at its annual average between the period of 1971 and 2000 in the year 2010. But you can see there's quite a few areas where it was less than 65% of the annual rainfall along the western coasts, the western coast of Scotland, and then through most of England. The rainfall level in 2010 was lower than the national average for those particular areas. Now, the average rainfall per head of population in the south of England, when you actually consider it per head of person, is actually less than some areas around the Mediterranean, basically because there's a high density of population around the southeast of England. In addition, the population continues to grow, so the amount of available water per person will continue to get less. And water levels in the English regions south of the River Humber are already stressed. So this, you can see here on the graph, this here area is the River Humber, and everywhere below that is considered to be under stress currently. So that's your River Humber. So everywhere below south of that line is considered in the UK to be currently under stress for water levels. In most cases, water levels are considered to be at critical levels. In 2012 would be a good example. In the spring of 2012, there was hosepipe bans brought in spring in most of the southeast area. So again, you can see there's the River Humber, and in all these areas down to the southeast, were all subject to a hosepipe ban in spring of 2012. So in addition to what we said in the previous slide, you can see in England and Wales there's about 1,334 cubic metres of rainwater per person. Southeast of England, that drops to around about 921 metres cubed per person, and in the Thames Valley, sort of in and around London, there's about 266 metres cubed of rainfall per person. And if you compare that with countries that we would traditionally consider to be drier climates, Afghanistan, Iran, Iraq, the Middle East, areas in the Middle East, Egypt, Ethiopia and Israel, you can all see that these countries have considerably more rainfall per person than someone living in the Thames Valley area. And basically people living in the Thames Valley area, nearly the same as what the rainfall amount you would get in Israel, in the Middle East. So in parts of the UK there is concern over the water and the rainfall. However, 2012, in spite of the hosepipe bans in spring time, it was one of the wettest years on record. So you can see 2010 went from being completely arid, very dry, everywhere below the national average, till 2012, where basically nearly all the country was well above the national average. So again, it's indicative of our changing weather patterns. It can be very dry or very wet. So the UK weather conditions in recent years have been either too little rainfall, particularly through the winter months, or too much rainfall, particularly in the spring and autumn, leading to flooding. This variability on our rainfall puts pressure on our mains water supplies, basically to supply the water we require in the summer period, and then when the heavy rainfalls come, it also puts pressure on the drains and sewers and rivers to deal with the excess rainwater runoff in the wetter periods. What rainwater harvesting can do is it offers one option to help address both of these issues. It can help supply rainwater in the summer period, and it can help to relieve pressure on the drains and sewers and rivers in the wetter periods. So we'll have a little bit more of a look at rainwater harvesting now in detail. One of the drivers for rainwater harvesting is let out in the Code for Sustainable Homes, where it sets mandatory requirements to reduce the consumption of potable water in the home from all sources. And these requirements specify limiting the water use per person from what would currently be the standard at 120 litres per person per day at code level 2 to only 80 litres of water per person at code level 6. So once you get up to sort of passive house standards, code level 6 on the Code for Sustainable Homes, it's defined that the amount of water per person needs to be reduced to 80 litres per day. And water demand within a domestic property can be reduced by a number of ways, and can be reduced in a number of ways. One such way would be to use low flush WCs, also to include water efficient fittings and appliances such as taps, showers, washing machines, dishwashers, etc. And then rainwater and grey water recycling are another way in which the demand on the water can be reduced.